PlayStation console, as we know, is home to many interesting and quirky titles, but there are also a lot of interesting entries that never got released on the system for whatever reason. Many of them were halfway through development, or even in this case nearly finished, but for whatever reason they just were never released, which is a pity and is a shame, because during the early years we would have seen many instances of these game ideas or concepts, or even previews of these games in magazines, and you might have seen maybe some videos pop up here and there, but for whatever reason they just became lost to time. But now, with the evolution of emulation and even with the internet, a lot of these prototypes are starting to surface, and now we do have the ability to try them in some shape or form. Now just know that they are prototypes, so they're not fully fleshed out and they're not fully completed. So while many of them do work, there are going to be bugs and glitches that are going to crop up from time to time. Like you might have issues with collision detection, or certain elements not working, or things disappearing or not appearing at all. That's just what happens with these unique projects. I have actually covered videos that I found previously of other titles that were in development and cancelled also, so I'll make sure to drop a link to a playlist below in the description, as there are definitely some interesting ideas here that could have gone on to do really, really well. In all fairness, I genuinely think that they would have done, but like I said, now we'll never know. But at least we can play whatever versions are out there in their current format, and in all honesty, some of them are a lot better than you might think. One of the prototypes in question that we have here is a game simply known by the name of Deuce, which is a medieval action adventure game where you play as like a knight or a seasoned warrior who is tasked with trying to save his kingdom from being overrun by an invasion. Now with this prototype, it does give you access to play through many of the levels that were active during its development stage, so you can pick and choose between them pretty much from the get-go. So you can jump to different scenes and play through some of the levels, even in certain cases if a glitch happens, which will be inevitable. I found it myself from playing this. You might get stuck in a doorway, or you might actually fall through a floor for no reason, but you can pick up from where you left off, or even skip to another section. But the game, for all intents and purposes, is there, it's active. In certain areas it has its own music and sound effects, while in other areas it may not have music, but there still has all the gameplay elements like platform and action. So you'll have to find and complete different objectives. So you'll start out by needing to find the key to open a door to gain access to the castle, and later then you will need to find a weapon, so you'll be brought into a room that has a sword in it, which will be locked. So the objective will be to defeat all of the enemies that will appear, and once you've defeated all of the enemies that are available, then the door will unlock, and then you can proceed then to explore the rest of the area that you're in. So you will also come across various different rooms and environments that will require many different gameplay types, from platforming, puzzle solving, and just overall exploration in order to achieve different goals. And you will also face off against different boss types later in the game, and in many cases most bosses don't have the usual values to them where you just go in either all guns blazing, or just go in and punch and kick, or swing a sword at everything that moves. No, in this case, from what I have played of it, it does have distinctive gameplay types that remind you of, if I really think about it, Alex Kidd in Miracle World that was on the Sega Master System. Many of the boss fights in that made use of the rock paper scissors gameplay mechanic, where you had to take turns and make sure you picked the right choice in order to win the game, which I think was very, very cool. So this element does appear here. Now mind you, it doesn't give you clarity over to do the amount of rounds that you need to win. I found that once I lost 3 rounds I was gone, but that even though I won 3 rounds or more, it just kept going and going and going, and there never seemed to be any end to it. Like even when the opponent was losing, it still kept playing the game over and over again. So the only workaround for this to proceed is literally just to pause the game and to pick a different level and try to skip past that section that you were in. Now obviously, if had the game been released, this would have all been taken care of and it would have been corrected, but at least you have that option to still move ahead and just explore the game. But how does it play in terms of its overall control systems and gameplay mechanics? Well, in fairness to it, for a prototype, it plays very, very well. It has really good use of graphics. It actually has some really excellent visuals. Even though they're cartoony, they're really high in detail, and for like a PlayStation 1 game, in terms of the physics and the combat interactions and the movement, is really, really good. It's a lot better than you would think, especially when you compare it to other games. Like the quality of this game is definitely top notch from what I have played of it so so far. And it's interesting where this could have ended up in terms of the level of value that it could have presented to the large catalogue of PlayStation games. I think this would have done quite well and would have appealed to quite a few players. But obviously there was reasons why the game was cancelled, which is a shame really, because what is there is really decent. Highly playable, very good. Visually, very, very good. Gameplay wise, yeah, it does have its bugs and glitches, don't get me wrong. But it's proof that there was some really, really good ideas that were on this console that really should have been explored a lot more. So there are a few different variations of the builds and prototypes available for this game. Some of them dating back to the year 2000, but it's only in the more recent years that we're getting access to them. So for all intents and purposes, this game I'd imagine would have been scheduled to be released either within that year or sometime later on the PlayStation itself. But I genuinely think it would have done quite well. It definitely has enough distinctive elements. Yes, it's inspired by other games of a similar type, but it definitely does what it's trying to do very, very well. It is playable. I was enjoying this when I was playing it, especially if you like exploration. You will have that in abundance here, because there's a lot to look for and a lot to try and find. And just the visual representation for a PS1 game is very nice indeed. In fairness, it really is. But again, it's just one of those games that unfortunately has been lost to the realm of time, and we will never truly know where this could have gone or what was happening to it during that time. And still, when you do go looking online, yes, you'll find areas and where you can download the game, and there is a few small articles regarding some elements of it. But as what I always find with a lot of these games, even with games that have been released on the PlayStation, my argument is that there should be more information out there. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people like myself that are actively still looking for many of these games or concepts because they want to know more about them. But unfortunately, we can't seem to find them because there really is nothing out there, or if there is information, it's usually very, very vague, and it doesn't explain everything in the detail that we need to understand it. So I'm hoping that by making these type of videos of stuff that I do find out there in the wilderness, that at least it brings some clarity to the ideas that people are looking for, so that at least they can get some idea of the game, maybe even remember the name, and just overall try and gain access to it themselves so that they can see it for what it is and enjoy it for what it is, more to the point. But regardless of what I think, it really just depends on your own play styles, your own perceptions, what you think of it overall. I do think that anyone that does sit down to play this will get something out of it. I genuinely think that a lot of people will think like myself that this could have been something really, really good, and it's just a shame that it never became a full thing, in fairness. But what we do have here, we have the makings of something that was really, really promising, and that definitely could have done well on the PlayStation had it been released in its full form. But aside from what I think, again, I would love to know your thoughts of this. Have any of you out there even heard of this game? Have you played it yourself? Do you know anything about it, or do you have any information to share around the development, or what went wrong, or what was the reasons behind why it never got released in the first place? It will be interesting to hear more about this game, so be sure to share it down in the comments below. And if you would like to see more content around other prototypes that never got released on the PlayStation, which I have found and covered previously in other videos on the channel, then make sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and again, you can check out the playlist here on screen to see a lot more of those prototypes in action. And as always, keep those gaming memories alive.